Street gospel, light of the tempo. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Black burial, the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One. And this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this? Episode number 52. If you caught our last episode, it was with Brett Swaim from Second Amendment Zone in Upland. We got to talk a little bit about some guns and some of the new laws and different things. So we know that every podcast is not going to be for everybody, you know, and that might not be your cup of tea, but I thought it was a good one because he was talking about, you know, our rights. He was talking about gun ownership and why it's important and, you know, how the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in that, if you want to know a little bit about guns, gun ownership, and maybe you're not interested in it, but it definitely was something that you should listen to. But we got a good guest here today, man, and we're just going to get to it. So I'd like to play a little bit of, you know, maybe a little bit of music. I mean, this guy right here, he's a husband. Well, first, he's a believer. A husband, a father, a soon-to-be grandfather, which is crazy because we've known each other a very long time. He's a pastor, a good friend. He's very big on the whole Cleveland thing. And when I say Cleveland, he's probably one of the biggest Cleveland fans. Oh, he is the biggest Cleveland fan I know. But I want to welcome to the show, Adam Friedrich.
Awesome.
What's up, brother?
What a great introduction. The fact that Cleveland made the introduction is, it's pretty epic right there.
I knew all those things I mentioned about you, you know, being a pastor, believer, husband, father, soon to be grandfather, very important stuff in your life. But I know Cleveland's right there.
Cleveland is right there. Yep.
Well,
I'm a huge fan.
Okay. Why is Cleveland part of you? Or why are you a big Cleveland fan?
All my family is originally from Cleveland, so my dad raised me to cheer for and be an avid fan of the Browns, the Cleveland Indians, and Ohio State Buckeyes. So I've kept it that way my whole life.
Now, for all you people out there that are listening to this, there is one team he left off of there because you're a diehard Laker fan too.
I'm a Laker fan. Yes, I'm a Laker fan. I was happy when the Cavaliers won in 2016. I was happy for Cleveland because they finally got a championship. But, yeah, we weren't really into basketball back then, so, yeah.
What do you think about the new name, the Guardians?
I'm not going to hold it against the team because I cheer for the city. So, you know, I just tend to call them the Cleveland baseball team, and I try to ignore that because I really, you know, I love baseball and I can't switch teams. So, yeah, the whole name change thing was a difficult one for me, but you know, I basically just stayed with the team, with the city. Yep.
I mean, I get it. I mean, Indians, Guardians, it's kind of in the same realm there, DIANS. It's not like the Washington Commanders or something like that. It's just totally different.
Interesting about this whole name is that there is, right outside Cleveland Stadium, most people don't recognize this, but they tried to keep the name synonymous with the city. And so they actually, right outside the stadium, are these two large statues that enter into the downtown area of Cleveland, and they're called the Traffic Guardians. And so you can, as you're driving to the stadium, you go right by them. You really don't pay attention to them. They're these like really massive looking statues that are holding, you know, semi trucks and tractors and cars. And so they basically took the name Guardian from that whole Traffic Guardians. So
I mean, at least it
was okay.
It's still part of the city.
That's how I view it.
In a way, right? I mean, it's part of the city. I mean, it wasn't. It's not that bad. I mean, it makes sense. You're not just getting some random name and then it's still part of the city somehow.
I hate it. I hate the fact they're not the Indians anymore. I still call them the Indians to this day. So
I'm sure most people do.
Yeah.
And then you got your Browns, which is it's rough. It's pretty rough. I mean, it's Okay, so it's been pretty rough for me since 2002 because I'm a Raider fan.
Okay.
So we were kind of in the same boat there.
Yep.
I mean, we played not too long ago. You guys were in full force. We barely won that game.
Yes.
And I told you we probably were might lose because that's what the Raiders do. But it's rough being a fan of a team that just can't get it together. I know the feeling.
Well, yeah, but at least you have championships to your credit and playoff appearances. Literally, I mean, the Browns are really good when I was young. That's why I became such a big fan. They were super good. Bernie Kosar, those 80s, Clay Matthews, all those. They had some really, really good
Great
teams.
guys, yeah.
And great teams. And we just never could get past John Elway and the Denver Broncos. I thought we should have been in the Super Bowl a few times. Didn't work out. And then we went through the owner sold the team or moved the team to Baltimore. They became the Baltimore Ravens. And the very next year, with all of those Cleveland Browns players, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. They drafted Ray Lewis the year they left, and they won the Super Bowl the next year. And that should have been the Browns. And, of course, we all know the story. They brought the Browns back, and they've been horrible ever since. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that was kind of messed up, right? I mean, that was your guys' championship. That was your guys' team. Yeah.
But it tells you a little something about Cleveland that they sued the owner for the naming rights, the colors. And so he could take the team, but he couldn't take the name or the colors. That tells you something about the city of Cleveland and how important the teams are to the people. They take a lot of pride in it. I think that's what I identify with. That's why I'm a big Cleveland fan. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that change teams. Never. I can't. I just can't. It doesn't matter. It's frustrating. Sundays are bad. Or either there's no in between, right? They're either really like you're really hyped, and especially if you get out of church, you come watch the game. It's 1:00. You're excited, and then it can either be like a great evening, for me, anyways, or it's going to be a horrible evening, and you're just frustrated.
But you still watch every game.
You still watch every game.
The 0-16 season, I watched every single game, and that was the year after the 1-15 season. So literally, 1-31 is what I had 2 years of. And so, honestly, it's getting better. For me, it's getting better. At least we're competitive. And who knows what could happen in the next little while. I got faith every year that maybe this is the year.
Maybe this is the year.
Yeah.
And that's the I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you're a fan for so many years, and then they finally get over the hump, maybe win the championship. And that's, I mean, if you're a lifetime fan, that's all you want. Just try to give me one.
Just one.
I think we're spoiled because the Lakers have won a lot, and they're pretty much supposed to win, and then when they don't win, it's a failure.
Yep.
When our teams get to the playoffs, it's a huge win.
Totally.
In football.
Yep.
So, we finally got you here.
I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. This is a little bit of a bucket list thing for me. So
a bucket list.
Yeah. I always wanted to be on the Street Gospel podcast. Kind of similar to, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be the gangster in the drama. You know what I mean? And I never got selected for the role. And so I just figured, I don't know if I'll ever be able to make it on the Street Gospel podcast.
Wow.
Looking at the different guests and then you asked my wife on, and I was like, well, maybe there's a shot. There's a chance.
I thought she was more gangster than you. That's why.
Maybe. She is.
My wife's more gangster than me for sure. I already know that, man. But yeah, I was. So I wanted to have you on. I wanted there to be a little bit of gap in between you and Carrie. I didn't really plan it. I didn't know. I always do it off feeling. I don't do it off a gut. I do it off a gut feeling, basically. So if I feel like, this guy's going to be good today, let's have this guy. And then you want to kind of line it up where it's a little bit different of everybody. We had Brett here last time. He was talking about guns. Before that, Bobby, and then Chingo Bling. It's just different people, and I think that's the makeup of the podcast.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it good. That makes it special. Yeah, it's different stories, but all good stories. Yeah.
And you're a big supporter, listener of the podcast. I mean, you give me you really listen, because there's times when you tell me something like a point that somebody makes or something they say, and you're like, hey, I really like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, he really listens.
Yeah. I think a trick for everyone, if you're out there listening on on one of the streaming, if you're listening, you can speed up the podcast, which is what I do.
Yeah.
And the song at the beginning, if you listen to the Street Gospel theme song at the beginning on Time and a Half, it's amazing. It's amazing. It takes the podcast to a different level, in my opinion.
It's like a rave.
It's amazing.
Speeds up everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. But I'm glad you came on. I think so. We've been friends for a long time.
Yep.
I mean, I would say, what do you think? Teenage years?
For sure, teenage years, we knew each other.
Right.
I don't know if we were necessarily friends, but we knew each
Yeah.
other.
We played basketball.
Yeah.
We were sometimes in the same realm. Yeah, we weren't like best friends.
And we knew a lot of the same people.
Same people.
Yeah.
But I think we always were connected. I think there was a time probably when I was a little bit distant from everybody, and it seemed like you always had like a way to, I don't know if it was planned, but you would always pull me back in to do something or be a part of something.
Yeah. Well, I just respected the different elements that and different contacts and the people that you knew, and you were a little bit outside the box, and I just kind of I respected that and wanted to get that aspect into some of the things that we were doing.
Yeah, because you were doing a lot of youth events.
Yep.
with your church, with Elevate, and which is great. A lot of good stuff. We can kind of even go back on that, but so you were kind of involving me. Hey, can you help us out?
Yep.
Be a creative. Get these guys over here. Maybe do something. What do you think? And I was always like, yeah, for sure. And a lot of those events were fun.
They were fun.
The youth liked them. We got artists out there. We got just all kinds of different stuff. Bands, DJs, different things.
Yeah, I think that's what I love the most, is just getting so many different types of people and so many different types of interests involved in one spot. And you brought a lot of that to the table, and I appreciated that. So yeah,
it was pretty fun, and I think it kept me connected. It kept me grounded. I think I always had a lot of respect for you for. I think when most people are kind of like hands off with me for whatever reason, but you're always like, "Hey, let's do it,"
Yep.
And kind of just see me for who I was.
yeah.
That was cool.
Well, I didn't know any of that. I just saw you and saw how you what the things that you liked, and I knew it would relate to kids, young people, and at least a certain segment of it. And I wanted to make sure that we targeted all likes and all different types of things, and so. Yeah, you really helped me connect with some of them, which I appreciated. Yeah,
it was some good times there.
Yeah,
and so your journey started. You weren't from here. You're from Kingman, right?
Yeah, I was born in Kingman, Arizona.
It's like happening there, right? It's so cool and just fun and right.
No, Kingman, Arizona is, if you've ever, some of you probably have. Maybe you've been there, but you didn't even know it, because it's literally just 2 exits off the 40 freeway, kind of close to Lake Havasu City. My parents moved there only because my mom went to college in Ohio University, and she went to college to be a teacher. And there was only 2 positions. Once she graduated, there was only 2 positions available to her. And one was in Kingman, Arizona. My dad graduated at the same time with a business degree. And so they decided, well, hey, we have at least a job in Kingman. So they packed up, they got married, packed up their belongings, drove cross country, and landed. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. They landed in this little tiny town of Kingman, Arizona. And a couple years later, I came along. Yeah.
Only child.
Yep.
Living in Kingman. What was that like?
I mean, I didn't know anything different, so I kind of liked it.
Cool.
I liked it. I mean, it's a small town. There's really nothing to do, so you have to figure out what to do. So, we did all kinds of stuff, rode motorcycles. We went to the lake a lot, as a family. I took my bike everywhere. I pretended I was Superman. It's just we found things to do. Yeah, for sure. There was no stores. We ordered all my clothes came from catalog shopping.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
So we didn't have anything there. So now there's actually a Walmart in Kingman. So I guess it's on the map now. So,
decades later, basically.
For sure.
Finally, they get a
literally,
Walmart.
Literally nothing there. Yeah.
It's crazy. And your parents, they weren't always believers, But the reason why they moved here was because they wanted to start a church, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So in 1985, my dad had started, 1980, my dad had started several businesses in Kingman. He actually took his degree and just kind of hustled and opened up a used car lot. And that became, fairly successful quickly. And then he bought a Ford dealership, a Volkswagen dealership. He put a liquor store there in the town, and then bought a nightclub. And so he was doing really good financially, and our family was doing pretty good financially. But there was really nothing going on with our home life. My parents weren't doing well, married. They were struggling. I didn't really see my dad very much because he was just working all the time. And so in 1980, he had an experience with God. He hired a guy to work for him who turned out to be a pastor in the community. He was just super radical, like really, really, really on fire for God. But my dad was kind of like a who's who in the community, and this guy was just kind of crazy, but crazy for God. And my dad just watched his life and just started to really respect him, and that kind of led him on a journey, I think, a search for who is God? What is it? Because he'd gone to church his whole life, but didn't really have a relationship with the Lord. And he had an amazing encounter with God, and that's a story in itself. But literally from that moment, from his encounter, it kind of led our family on a journey. My mom, didn't really follow in his footsteps right away, but my dad began to prove to her that he was changed, that he was different. And eventually she gave her life to the Lord, and they just began to serve God in this community. And just basically, God started to bless the businesses in a really tremendous way. They were totally blessed, but they were using their lives for more than that. So it wasn't all about money. It wasn't all about business. It wasn't all about that anymore. It became about people. And my dad just kind of threw himself into the community, and then really felt like God was leading him towards starting a church, and he developed kind of a real passion and a heart for Southern California. And so in 1985, just 5 years after he gave his heart to the Lord, he sold the businesses, and with that money moved us to Southern California, moved to Buena Park, California, really, really close to Knott's Berry Farm. And
was that a shock for you? Coming from Kingman?
Yeah. Well, because I didn't even know what Southern California was. All I kept hearing was, "Hey, Knott's Berry Farm is there," and so I had no idea what that was. Like, no one explained. There's, it's kind of like Disneyland. They just said, "Oh, you're going to where Knott's Berry Farm is," and so I'm picturing an actual farm. Like, I have experience with that, because my family lives in Ohio on a farm. So when I'm thinking Knott's Berry Farm, I'm thinking actual farm. I'm thinking, why is that cool? What's so good about that? But I remember coming to Southern California and just being like, whoa, this is crazy, because there were so many people and different ethnicities and culture. Like, I never knew any of that. All I knew was a hick town, cowboys and Indians.
That's crazy.
Legit, and to move to Southern California was a real eye-opener for me, and I was so glad that we moved here. I was like, wow, I love this place.
Yeah, that's a trip, because a lot of people, especially young people, when they move somewhere, they hate it. They just want to be where they were at, be where they're from. But to move to something, especially something so different, it's not like you're moving to another, Bakersfield or something. You're moving to
my world.
Some action.
My world got huge. Like, it went from real small and real confined to all of a sudden all this different opportunity. Like, all of a sudden there's surfers around me and skateboarders, and I didn't even know what a skateboard was. I never really even saw one.
That's crazy.
And so to move here and see the culture around it, it was a super eye opener. I moved here. The bike I had would be super popular today, because it was like a banana seat. Like a lowrider bike, but it was a Schwinn.
The OG Schwinn,
OG. And I remember the first day of school. I was used to just kind of going everywhere on my bike, because in Kingman it's not dangerous, let's put it that way. So I'd go everywhere. So it was nothing for me to ride my bike to school, And so I remember I was in 5th grade, and I rode this black and yellow Schwinn, banana seat bike, with a little tire in the front, big tire in the back. To me, it was a sweet bike. And but when I rolled up, I looked so different from everyone else. I had this, what I thought was good as far as dress was concerned was, I had catalog clothes. I had I had a cowboy shirt with pearl buttons down the center of it, and an adult collar on a fifth grader, and it was my favorite shirt. So that's kind of how I appeared coming into with glasses, big glasses, like too big for me. And I rolled into fifth grade, and it was a rude awakening for me.
Was it bad?
Oh yeah, it was bad. Like just all of a sudden I got hit with like bullies, like legit bullies. They hid my bike. Like in Kingman, you don't lock up your bike. Like that's not a thing. You don't lock anything.
So you didn't lock your bike when you came to school?
No. So I didn't lock my bike. I stuck it in there and came out. This is like, first week of school, literally. And my bike was gone. Oh. And so I was like, and then I noticed everybody's looking at me and laughing. And it turns out they had taken my bike and they had thrown it into some bushes. And I remember, coming home and just being so like hurt,
Yeah.
Like, dang, And I told my dad what happened. I'm making fun of me, and here we are trying to start a church. My dad didn't even have a job yet. And so my dad, I remember he said, hey, come on, let's go. And so we drove down to Buena Park, a bicycle shop, still there to this day on Beach Boulevard. I'll never forget it. And he's like, pick whatever bike you want. And I was just started looking around, and back then it was like GT.
Oh,
the GT,
yeah, man,
Mach 3, I think what it was, and I was like, that's the one I want. It was the hanging up in the window. I was like, that's the bike I want. My dad's like, he's looking at the price, and I didn't understand then,
Yeah.
I was just a fifth grader, and he's like, oh, we're getting it for you. So he got it for me, and I remember the next day just cruising up with my lock.
Yeah, better have your lock now.
Going to school, and it's just, all of a sudden, I started to I think I started to adapt a little bit, and my eyes were kind of opened, and sometimes not in a good way, you know what I mean? Because I started, a little bit of who I was kind of being taken from me a little bit, I started compromising, and just even as a fifth grader, I started trying to figure out, well, what do I have to do
to fit in,
and for people to like me, which I never even, that didn't cross my mind in Kingman.
Yeah, you were in Kingman.
Oh yeah,
but here it's just I think a lot of kids go through that, even in the change of a school from junior high to high school, or elementary to junior high, or whatever. They begin to compromise who they are and try to fit in. It's I think we all have done that in some way or form.
Yeah, it happened to me quick, because where I lived in La Mirada was a real. I think it's still kind of like that. It's a real, like, there's a lot of youth culture there. So like in my neighborhood, you probably heard of the band Striper.
Yeah,
the Christian heavy metal band.
Yeah,
back in the 80s, they were huge.
Yeah,
they were huge as far as that kind of music. Well, they were in La Mirada, and they had the garage painted black and yellow, and so we would go cruising down there and listen to them. As they were practicing, they weren't even really much yet.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and then my next door neighbor was like a semi-pro skateboarder, and his sister, she was older than I was, and he was way older than I was. But I mean, I like looked up to this guy, like, man, if I could somehow be like this guy. Well, his sister was older than I was, but she kind of took interest in trying to help me out a little bit. Like, so she gave me some of his like sponsored clothes. I kind of told me like, hey, this is what you need to wear.
Wow.
These are the kind of shoes you need to get. And so she started to kind of like help me figure out like what Southern California is, because it was a new world to me. Yeah,
that's crazy, because I never knew that about you. I knew this story, but I didn't. It makes sense, of course, now that you say that. Like, you come here as fifth grader. It's a rough. It's that rough age, where you're trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And if you have a few friends, you're cool. You can figure it out a little bit.
Yep.
But you have no friends, and that sixth grade is make or break you, man, because it can really send you either, to find your way, or it can send you the opposite way of just, kind of withdrawing from everybody.
And I'm outgoing, so it wasn't an option for me. I was gonna figure it out, and I'm an extreme nature. That's kind of, I'll go all in. And so that's kind of what happened to me in that area. I started really just kind of going all in on skateboarding. Like there's a park there, La Mirada Regional Park. And back then in the wintertime, they would drain the pools. And skateboarding back then, there wasn't like today, there's skate parks everywhere,
Right.
different things. And, but hanging around with these guys, I was just following their in footsteps, and we're cutting the gates and going into those pools and riding and getting chased out of there. And the exhilaration of that was fun, and enticing in a lot of ways for me.
And in this mix, your dad and your mom are starting to start a church.
Yeah.
How is that mixing?
Oh man, it's super weird. It's super weird because you got to remember we didn't have any people, so we're just starting the church from scratch. The first service was just me, my mom, and my dad in this little small 1,700 square foot storefront building. Like that. That was our first service, and so the office was our house. Jeez. And so when people called the church, they were dialing our house. And so I remember our phone number no longer exists, so I can share it. It's 714-670-2744. It was on every flyer, but it was also our home number. And so when the phone would ring, my dad would answer it, praise the Lord. So my mom would answer it, Praise Chapel, because that was the name of our church at the time. And so when word got out that that's how my parents answered the phone, all of a sudden my phone number started getting shared with everybody in the school. And so literally every day it was a race to the phone. When the phone rang, man, I'm going there. I'm running as fast as I can just to say hello, So I was trying to fit in with everyone else and still please my parents. I have a great relationship with my parents even to this day. And so I wanted them to be proud of me. And so I was in a little bit of a challenging time because I was literally kind of two people. So I was one way at home and at church, but no one knew that side of me when I went to school or hanging out in the neighborhood doing my thing.
Yeah, I think same thing with me pretty much. It was my parents were saved. My dad was really outspoken in our neighborhood, witness to everybody.
Yep.
Everybody knew we went to church. So when they anticipated, I think, if I did something wrong, then it's like, hey, you go to church, don't you? Or your dad has Bible study at the house, invites the whole neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood would come to the Bible study. So it would always be a little bit of a catch-22 sometimes. Like, you want to do good and be good, and for your parents, for God, but then you had your neighborhood friends.
And I didn't want my friends to come to our church at the time, because it wasn't much.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Your dad's a pastor. Yeah, he's a pastor. Where's your church at? And I was like, oh man, even to tell them is a little bit nerve wracking. Because what if they show up? You know what I mean? There's 10 people there, and they're gangsters and drug addicts, and that's who came to our church at the time.
It must have been tough. The church grew, right?
Yeah.
And you guys have been in the building we're in now. Just in case everybody don't know, this is my church. This is my home church now. This is my pastor.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of weird, but it is kind of cool. We'll get into it a little bit more. Yeah. But your dad and mom, the church began to grow. And it's a great thing now. And to be there from the beginning till now, it's got to be
it's awesome.
A little crazy.
Yeah. I know the whole story. And so I wasn't always all in, at the beginning. I wasn't really saved. I didn't really have an experience with God when we started the church.
No experience.
No, I'd been to church. I'd prayed. I knew the stories. I just like most kids that go to church. I was a church kid, so I knew, but I didn't have that encounter like my dad had at that moment. So we're starting the church, and my parents are that's all they're doing. They're going for it, and they're amazing parents. They were wonderful with me, but you can't force somebody to have an encounter with God. That happens. God does that. The Holy Spirit does that, and I hadn't had that yet. And so although I was happy what we were doing, I was always I tried to contribute. I really did. I tried to help my dad. I helped set up the chairs. I helped vacuum the church. I went with them. I was the transparency guy. So back then, the words to the songs were you put transparencies up on a little projector and shoot them up on the wall. That was my job. I learned to play the drums. So I played with our worship team. So I was doing stuff at church. So
but was it kind of to like just please your parents, just to make them happy?
I think I liked doing it. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy doing it. I did enjoy doing it, but I was doing it. Yeah, I was making them happy, but I kind of liked it too. I liked being at church and stuff. The thing is it didn't translate outside of the church. So all of that stuff, it was just kind of an exercise that I was doing, but it wasn't like something passionate inside my heart that was producing that.
Right. Do you think that happens to a lot of kids when their parents are, maybe come to God and give their life to God, and they have the best intentions, but I think a lot of the kids, not saying that it's on purpose or anything, but they kind of get a little lost in the shuffle of, like, this is what we do, and they don't have that encounter. I mean, the encounter is, it's like a theme on the podcast here. You've heard it. Yeah. When did you have that encounter of your own?
Man,
I mean, how long was it after your parents honestly, gave their life to God?
Yeah, so I was in junior high and I was still living that kind of double life, and doing okay, but I really started getting around the wrong group. And I was a leader naturally, so I was kind of leading the pack too. And so, push came to shove. I ended up doing some dumb stuff. I think about it. It's nothing compared to what happens in school today. But our chemistry teacher had a wig, and so one of my friends was like, "Hey, pull her wig off."
Oh, it was I thought you were going to say a male. I thought it would be like a toupee.
No. This is a female.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she was kind of a crazy teacher. I'll be honest. She was pretty nuts. Like she would, if you were talking in class, she'd bust a big yardstick on your desk and freak you out. So she wasn't my favorite teacher, anyways, and I wasn't doing well in the class, and so one of my friends was like, "Yeah, I dare you to pull her wig off," and it took me a few days. I was thinking about it, but I thought, man, I could go down in history for this one. and so I did. And this was, I don't know what got into me that day, but I did. And I didn't, I'm from the era where if you did something and you were in trouble, they would pull this little cord on a little speaker box that was kind of above the chalkboard, and that would basically dial the office. And so before she could even pull the cord and say what she was going to say, I was already making my way to the office. And I knew, man, I'm busted. Like, why did I do that? So stupid. Like, I just ratted myself. And, of course, what happened is all my teachers, the counselors, all got into a room with the principal, my parents, and I. And they went around the room and they were just kind of assessing me as an individual. And literally, it was like negative. Mrs. France, the lady I ripped her wig off, she was the last one to speak. And she looks at my mom and she says, "I have nightmares about your son." Oh. Yeah. So, I mean, this wasn't a good meeting at all. This is bad. Except for it got to the PE teacher, Mr. Agee, and he goes, "Yeah, I kind of like Adam." so my PE teacher, well, we were cool. But I remember we left that day, and I was like, what is my dad going to do? Because my dad was a disciplinarian. Like, I didn't mess around. My dad didn't let me get away with much. But I was also at an age where it's kind of hard to do that kind of discipline anymore. I'm kind of at an age where I'm going to do my own thing. And so I'm thinking, what's he going to do to me? How's he gonna respond? And I remember we walked out the office and we're standing on the front of the school.
Are you making your stance now? Every kid kind of gets to that point.
Yeah, but I was still afraid.
Okay. Yeah.
I was still totally scared.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah, I know that feeling. You have that feeling until your adulthood with your dad. And you can be old and
I still had the knot in my throat,
But there is a time when you're a young guy, and you finally go, well, I'm in trouble. He's gonna. I'm gonna make my stance here, and it is what it is. You know, I think every boy has that in their life.
Yeah, I didn't know
Cam,
what was going to happen.
I don't know if Cam had that, but
I'm sure he has.
yeah, I'm sure he has too.
I remember walking outside not knowing what's he going to do. Like, what's going to happen right now? And because I knew I was in trouble, but I had no idea. I was like, what's going to happen? And my dad, I could see it, and he didn't know what to say. I had hurt him. Like, both my parents were shocked and hurt, I think.
I mean, your mom must have been going crazy as a teacher.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom, yeah.
Like,
my mom was embarrassed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Both of them were. You know, they're leaders and pastors in the community, and their son is like kind of screwing up. And my dad looks at me. Just picture this. He doesn't know what to do, man. And I know it. And he goes, all right. Now you got to remember, at this time, I'm like the typical surfer kid, surfer skateboarder dude. I had Aquanet was the brand of choice, super hold. And so I had, like, if you remember Saved by the Bell, Zach with the big wave haircut, that was me. You know, like I had a big wave haircut and all surfed out totally. And my dad looked at me and he goes, "No more hairspray." He said collared shirts. You're gonna wear collared shirts, no more hairspray.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's it, you know? That was it. Like, that was kind of it. We went home and he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And there was really nothing being said. You know what I mean? It was a really weird feeling. Like, what the heck? You know, what's going to happen here? And the next day, my dad, we had a 2-story house, and he had like it was a loft that he used as his office. And he called me there and he goes, you know, I'm doing a lot of thinking about, you know, what to do. I don't even know what to do. He goes, you know, I could punish you. He goes, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to discipline you. And I was like, man, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? Is this different? Is it worse? Is it worse? And he goes, you know, what we're going to do, he goes, I'm your friend now. I'm the only friend you have. And remember, my dad's planting a church and is fairly young still. And so he was busy meeting with people, talking with people. And he says, but now you're my only friend. I'm your only friend. So after school, you're coming here and we're going to hang out. It's going to be you and me. That's what we're going to do. And I was like, okay, you know, that's cool, I guess, you know. I mean, that sounds like doable at least.
Yeah. Is that it?
And then he goes, what you're going to do is you're going to read 3 chapters in the Bible every single day. And you're going to write me a 2-page report.
Wait, how old were you?
I was 8th grade.
That's a struggle.
Oh man.
One chapter.
Now that to me was like, that sounded like hell, honestly. Like, I'm basically doing a full book report every single day on the Bible. And he was selecting it. And I didn't know how that was going to be. And so he started me off in the book of Joshua. And then we did Judges. We did Exodus. So we're like doing Old Testament stuff. That's where we're at.
Yeah, not the funnest books to read.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What's crazy is originally I hated it. Like he showed me how to use a concordance. He showed me the treasury of scripture knowledge, and he's teaching me how to study. Because he says, I'm not going to let you you're going to have to write like a real report. Like, this is going to I'm going to read it every day. And if it's not good enough, you're going to do it again.
Wow.
And there was many times that was the case, especially at the beginning. No, I want you to think about that. What does that mean? And what was so crazy is that as I began to read, especially when I got into like Exodus and I got through Judges, I started reading through Judges, what I began to see was my life. Like, all of a sudden the Bible, like it made sense to me as a person. Like, here's the children of Israel that God loved them so much, you know, and they would commit, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going for you. And there were so many times I went to the altar and I asked God to forgive me, and I said the sinner's prayer. I did all that, but I just went back and I'd fall right back into the old patterns and do the same thing I'd always done. And it was very disheartening, you know, for me, because I had good intentions and I felt like I had strong willpower, but I couldn't do it. And I started to see myself in the people, that God's people. I saw myself. I'm like, I'm one of them. That's who I am.
Doing good, falling back.
Yeah.
Doing good, falling back.
And nothing really changed. Like, I was reading that, and all of a sudden I saw myself, though. You know what I mean? I saw myself, but I didn't really, that wasn't an encounter necessarily, but I felt like God was kind of reeling me in. You know, like he was and my reports were good. Like all of a sudden I started like seeing things and pulling stuff out of scripture, and me and my dad would chop it up and have like honestly deep conversations. We'd be walking I played a lot of basketball with my dad. We walked to the park and we would talk through some stuff, and it was like really cool. Like that was my life was, I was getting a lot of clarity, and I was kind of finding out who I was, because I wasn't living myself. I was somebody else, you know? And so we went to a conference, and you probably were there, you know? It was at the Pico Rivera Sports Arena. It was in the summer.
Yep.
And turns out the guy that was speaking that day ends up, he's my father-in-law today, which, you know, I had no knowledge. I didn't even really know his daughter at the time. I didn't even know Carrie, except in passing. But he was preaching that day, and I can't even tell you necessarily what he was preaching about. All I knew is like the whole message. I just couldn't wait to get down on the bowl arena floor and meet with God. Like I just felt like this like intense like pulse beating. My heart felt like it was beating out of his chest, man. That's how it felt. And when he made a call, you know, and it was just a general call. I didn't care what the call was for. It didn't matter to me. I was going down there. And which was strange for me, because all I cared about those conferences was donuts and playing baseball in the field. Like, you remember those, right?
It's having fun.
Yeah, but I got down there and I went all the way to where the speakers were, all the way in the far left corner of the stage at the big subwoofer speakers, and you know, and I got down on my knees and I just had an encounter with God. I felt the love of God. I felt the call of God in just a weird way, because I was still real young, you know, just going into high school years, you know. But I felt the call of God, like God had a plan for my life. I didn't know what that looked like, nothing like that. And after that encounter, I remember going back to my seat. My dad was there, and I said, "Dad, my heart hurts. My heart hurts." My dad's like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, he was worried for me because my face was kind of flushed. And I was like, no. And my dad just starts laughing. You know, he's like, that's God right there. That's the call of God. God's touching you right now. And that was for me, you know, that was it for me. Like, my life changed from that point on. And the crazy thing is, Dave, check this out. So I got basically kicked out of junior high. Like I was basically expelled, you know. I did the end of my 8th grade year, I did it, you know, homeschool. And, but I graduated from high school and voted by my peers as teacher's pet, which is, you know, somewhat embarrassing.
A crazy turnaround.
I made fun of for that. But the reason I was the teacher's pet is because, like, literally, I knew I was friends with a lot of. It was just an amazing turnaround. And yeah, for me, when that yearbook came out and I saw my picture right there with holding this big giant pencil, that's what it is. And it was like God saying, "Man, that's a different person, a total 180." And yeah, so
did your friends that you grew up with trip out on the change or see the change?
You know, funny, you know, because I went back to school, I missed everything. I missed the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. I missed everything. I missed the 8th grade graduation, all that. And so I just was absent from all that. So 9th grade, I had that encounter with God that summer. So I showed up to school. And what's crazy is, even though I had that encounter with God, as soon as I showed up on that campus, I felt that initial pull. Like,
yeah,
I felt like, oh, man. And that first week, I was just waffling. And I didn't want that. And here's the thing about me. If whatever I say, I'll do it. And I knew that about myself, that if I'll just say it, that I'll do it. And so, not knowing any better, I'm a freshman in high school, and they had a place at our school called the Senior Quad. I didn't know it was a senior quad. All I know was an elevated spot. And so at the first break on it was like, I think it was Thursday of the first week of back at school, the first 10-minute break, I just went, I don't know what got into me, but I walked up onto that senior quad, which, you know, you can get canned for that. And I just said, "I'm a Christian. I love Jesus." I just yelled that from the top of my lungs. And then I just stepped down. All my friends heard it. Everyone saw it. And it set me free. I really feel like that was my salvation experience, because I professed my love for God.
Proclaimed it right there.
Yeah, right there in front of everyone. And it did something inside of me. Like, it solidified who I was.
Right.
And literally from that day forward, Yeah.
That's crazy that you say that, because I think it's like the hardest thing to do sometimes. But then it ends up making it very easy later. Like, you proclaim it. Like, I remember telling friends, like, hey, I'm a believer. I go to church. I'm a Christian. My family's saved. And once there was a change, you would have some people that make fun, and I was okay with that, because I can make fun of people and have a good go back. So not too many people mess with me. But when you proclaim it, it kind of made it a little bit easier, because you set the tone for yourself, and then the expectations for yourself, knowing that people are watching you. It kind of, it gives you some accountability, I guess, to yourself and to God, to really say, yeah.
It gave me confidence. Yeah, I was accountable to myself, but it gave me confidence. Like, I did that.
Yeah.
I'm still here. And I ended up having, I loved my high school years. Like, I enjoyed it. I lived for God my whole high school years, and I'm proud of that, honestly. Led a Bible club at my school. Saw some of my friends get saved. Brought some of them to church. All that. And I'm grateful for that.
What do you think? Did you know early on that you were a leader? I think you're a great leader. I think you've always been a leader. Now you're leading a church. You've led a long time with the youth. You're telling them about leading in high school and everything. But what do you think, or how do you think that developed? Was it just inside of you since you were young, or do you think it kind of developed over the years?
I would say it's probably both. Yes, it's leadership is something that you do develop, but you have to earn it. I think, I didn't have, I wasn't afraid of anything. Like, when I was younger, when I started going down the wrong path, like I kind of lived that way. Like, I was all in what I was doing, whether it would be sports, whether it be skateboarding, whatever it was. I was pretty extreme, and because of that, naturally, I think people gravitated, and I've tried to I don't think I try to do, I'm not trying to be a leader, but I think just by natural, the way I do things, and I think that just causes people to say, I'd like to try that too. And I like to pull people together. I like doing stuff with a group. And so, I'm not a loner. I don't like to be by myself. And so I like doing stuff with people. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah, I think it is both. That's good. That's a good point. It's in you, and it could be. I'm a leader, and sometimes I wish I wasn't a leader, because I think sometimes it can cause some frustration, because you're trying to lead, and you're wondering why other people don't think the way you think.
Yeah, and
then it gets a little tough, But because it's in us, we want. If they're not going to do it, we'll do it. If you want to make it great, okay, we're gonna. If I have to stay here all night, we're gonna make it great.
Right.
But it's not that we want the glory or the stuff. We just want to make sure that, hey, I want to make sure that this is good.
Life is better when you're doing it with people.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, and life's better when you're doing stuff that matters. And so I always try to lead people that way. But I had leadership skills even when I wasn't trying to lead people into good stuff.
Yeah,
I just wanted to have fun, and naturally, people would just gravitate that way, I think.
So you grow up in the church. God starts using you in the church. You're leading youth in the church. You're like me, get married super young, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. When you start living for God, all of a sudden, God opens up the world to you. That's really what happens. Like, all of a sudden, I really felt a promise from God that if I served Him, that He would use me. And I didn't know what that would look like. I had no clue what that would look like. But all of a sudden, my interests changed. Like, all of a sudden, I was super interested in missions. And I became interested in things that maybe normal kids my age didn't really care about. I became interested in spreading the gospel. Outreach, evangelism, it became something I wanted to do. And I remember my dad had gone to this conference many times, and I was just intrigued. This got me in trouble, but I was actually intrigued about kids who were growing up on the mission field. And I remember there's a particular couple that ended up getting planted from our group to the Philippines, and they had some kids, And I just wanted to know, what's it like? Like, what's it like in the Philippines? And, I had supported them financially as just a young kid because I thought, man, that's so cool, And so I actually wrote a letter to the daughter of this guy. And I never heard back. Like, never. I was like, oh, man, well, whatever. And the next time I saw them, they came into town. Next time I saw them, the dad said, "Don't be writing letters to my daughter."
Oh, snap!
I was like, "Okay." So I said I had no intentions. I really was genuinely interested. But that's really what happened with my wife, Carrie. My wife grew up overseas, so she was a missionary's daughter in the Philippines. I knew her from a distance, but I didn't know her that well. But I was intrigued by that, and so basically our relationship started like, hey, I'd like to just write back and forth. I'd like to write, and I was genuinely interested. I mean, she was beautiful. I was attracted to her, but I was really more attracted to the idea of the life she was living. And so that began our journey. Like, we started writing back and forth, and
which is crazy because the youth of today don't really understand that.
No, dude, like we didn't have.
Cam, are you about that life or no? Like writing letters? Are you like the DM type? Are you somewhere in between? Cam's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Cam will call a girl and be in his room talking to her on the phone, which is good compared to a lot of younger dudes nowadays.
For sure.
All the guys slide in the DMs, easy out. Send a text, easy out, right?
Easy.
But to write a letter, I wrote a lot of letters to Melissa. I lived in Southeast LA. She lived in Pomona. We were writing letters. I still got them in the garage.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more heartfelt. There's a little bit more meaning. It takes time, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about a couple pages. Your handwriting might suck. You're trying to make it look nice, right? You have to, and you have to physically get it, take it to the post office, put a stamp on it, and mail it off, right? It takes a little bit more effort, and then you don't get nothing back for, especially in the Philippines, right? It ain't coming quick.
It wasn't a 25-cent stamp, bro. We were sending it to the Philippines. It was, this was an investment,
Right.
But it was something cool about seeing a letter come through, and it's airmail, and it's got that special envelope, and you realize this thing traveled across the ocean, from the Philippine Islands to me, and I got to hear about their story and what they were doing. I just loved it. I honestly looked forward to those letters, and I'm grateful for it because she was my girlfriend. But back then, like, you just needed the picture in the wallet. You know what I mean? And so when I was in high school, I needed the picture in the wallet. It helped me stay good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there was lots of opportunity for me in high school to go down the wrong path, like, for sure. I mean, I think everybody understands that. But for me, it was easy because I had a picture in the wallet, and I was able to say, I'm taken. I have a picture in the wallet, but I didn't have any physical relationship at all. It was all friendship, and so we were writing back and forth, and I honestly thank God for that because Carrie and I got to know each other so intimately, and yet had no physical contact whatsoever. And I knew her so well, before I ever held her hand. I really, really knew her, and I think she knew me too, and that made our relationship all the more special. I think it was strong, very strong, before we ever even held. I'm talking held hands. You know what I mean? So, I value that time. And my parents and Carrie's parents would allow us to talk on the phone, once a week. And so we would alternate phone calls. We'd be able to talk for 20 minutes, on Sunday nights. I
big
look
bucks.
forward, man. Hey, after church, I couldn't wait to get home, and the phone would ring, and I knew it was her, and we talked for 20 minutes, and it was timed because, it was like a $50 phone call.
Yeah.
And our parents invested in that. And we were able to fax once in a while too, but still long distance charge just even to send a fax.
It's crazy.
So
the kids nowadays got it made.
No, man.
FaceTime all the way to Philippines and halfway around the world, whatever. They just got it made.
Yep.
I think so. You got married. You were 20.
I was 20.
Yeah, I got married when I was 22. So we're right behind you guys. A couple months, right? You just celebrated 28 years.
That's right.
Crazy, man. Time flies.
It's nuts. It's wild. Wow. I can't even hardly believe that. I hate even saying that, but man.
Yeah, it is kind of weird getting. it's weird because I think we think we're young, and then you really say what year you were born, and then somebody asks you how old you are, and you can't believe like we're our dad's age when we were young.
Yeah.
And it's like, how or what happened?
I remember just recently I was filling out an application, and you know how they have the asking for your birthday, and then
Right.
October, you're putting the day, and then you have to scroll to the year.
Yeah.
Have you tripped out on that? Like it's a dial, man.
It's
like,
it's like 3 times you have to go down.
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, this is weird,
I like the other one too, when you have to bubble in like your age bracket, and it's like 48 to 54 or something like that.
You're like second to last.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is the other one is like, they make it the letters bigger because they can't see it. but we're right there, and I was like, getting older. I mean, the cool thing is getting older with your, teenage love, right? I think we always mention that there's something special about falling in love when you're teenagers, and then growing older together. It's everybody out there that has it knows it and how it feels. Yep. It's like super special to have that teenage love, and then to now go through it, and your kids are grown, and you're enjoying life a little bit, just the two of you. Something great about that.
Yep. Yeah, I knew she was the one. Like I knew it because we both felt like our lives would matter for God. Like we both felt a call of God on our lives, and we felt like that we could do something together, And I saw her in my life, and I think she saw me in hers, and so it didn't take me long. Like I graduated in 1993. In June of 1993, I was engaged. 3 months later, in October, on my birthday, I proposed to Carrie, and we got married 9 months later in July. And so, literally, I basically graduated from high school and got married, and we started our journey. And it's been crazy. It's been a great ride, man. It's been so much fun, and I know there's still more to come. Like our story is really just kind of getting started. I really believe that.
I think the great thing as friends, and as we had this friendship closer in our adulthood, you shared things with me, and I think even in hearing the stories today, it's very easy to think that Adam Friedrich just had things made. And I think when I talked to you when we were talking about being young and being married and trying to make ends meet, and I think even for me, I was kind of like I don't have it pretty good, and then you started sharing me like 3 jobs trying to make it work, and just hustling, and even now, I see you and even your dad are like the first ones to jump in there and do the work. And I think a lot of people don't really see that aspect, but I think things were just handed down to you. I think your dad kind of had a way of gradually, working your way there. It was kind of like very unique because it can go really south really quick when things are like handed to you. But or it can just be a hard labor thing, and then it just gets sour. But I think with you guys, it was like a great transition. And I think when I heard the story, it made sense to me when you told me stories about you working 3 jobs. It's just like me and you just talking as men, And I'm not trying to put all your stuff out there, but I thought to me that meant a lot to me because I see the hard work that you do at the church, and then you tell me like, we struggled, man. It was crazy. It was just, I was trying to do everything, print shirts, do this, do that. And I was thinking like, that's why I like this guy, because I struggled, getting married young is no joke, and
I remember I was almost afraid to tell my dad I wanted to get married. Cause I remember I
try to talk you out of it.
It was late at night, and I've been just thinking about this. I can't get it off my head, man. Like I want to get married, man. And I'm like, I know she's the one. Why wait? Right. Like, what's the point? And I remember one night, it was late at night. My parents are already in bed, and I just kind of like went into their room, and I knelt down next to the bed, and I was like, Dad, I want to get married, man. I want to get married. And I kind of half expected him to be like a little disappointed, like, nah, you're not ready. And I know he was thinking that, all right? I know he was thinking that because, I've thought those same things about my own kids, when they've told me things like that. but he didn't voice that. He just listened to me, and he's like, hey man, whatever you want to do. And then they kind of helped me, kind of make a plan and go for it, and supported it 100%, which was crazy for me. But I also knew that my dad, there was expectation there. Like, if this is something that you're going to do, my dad was a hard worker, and he always taught me the value of hard work. And I learned that. I mean, even my grandpa, he would take me out on the farm, his farm, 32-acre farm, and he would have me do small jobs there. And he'd say, hey, you got to do a $5 job. And at first I thought, $5 means like I do a good job, or, I do the job and he gives me $5, so that was kind of my motivation, was like, I'm going to get $5. I do this. And so one particular time he had me do something. I'm like, Grandpa, that was a $5 job, and he's like, yeah, it was good. How do you feel about it? And it all of a sudden I recognized, it wasn't about the money. It's about the fulfillment of actually doing something, And my dad was the same way. They just used different language, But I knew if I get married, I'm gonna have to do this on my own. And I had too much pride to beg for help. My parents would have helped me. They've helped me over and over again my whole life. But this was something that it was my decision, and I was bound and determined to do it myself. And some of that is not great, because I you make mistakes when you think like that, and you try to do it, try to bullhead your way through it. But I just like, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna pay my rent. I'm gonna pay my bills. I'm gonna provide for my wife. And yeah, it was hard, man. Like, it was difficult. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other. We were married, and there were difficult times even in that. But we loved each other, and we were on a mission to do whatever God called us to do. And part of that was building a family, but part of that was doing his ministry. And we started getting after that, and yeah, it was challenging, but man, it was fun. And God always came through for me. I mean, I told you about delivering pizza. Like, I was short on my rent. Rent was due, and I was short. I wasn't gonna be able to do it. I delivered pizzas. I got $100 tip that night. And it was God. I started realizing, man, God's promises are true. Like, He takes care of His kids, and I started to trust God in even some of those scenarios. And man, God's always come through 100% of the time. That doesn't take away the work part, but God always came through.
I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Elevate Ministries. Elevate Ministries is an authentic, passionate, and innovative church in the heart of Orange County, California. They strive to make their services welcoming and encouraging by intentionally engaging you in all senses to stimulate a spiritual hunger. If you're looking for a great church that's on a mission to change the world one person at a time, I encourage you to check them out at www.elevateministries.com and on Instagram at Elevate Ministries. Do you think like a lot of young guys forget about the work part? They want to depend on. I shouldn't say that, but they think that they can just depend on God to fulfill every need, and it sounds wrong, right? But God wants us. Faith without works is dead. You got to still put in some work in that. And it seems like, the younger culture doesn't always get that all the time. Like it's very hard for them to see that. Like, just do the work and things will happen for you. But if you're just sitting back and you're just waiting for the work to come to you or waiting for the blessings to come, it's very difficult to come.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to understand sometimes when you look at the culture and the shift that's taken place, because this nation was built by hardworking men and the greatest generation. You look and you stand back and you read the history of how this nation was formed and the men that fought, and even men like my dad, who just built a business from the ground up, and you start getting you recognize that's what it took to make America what it is, and the result of that was blessing. The nation was blessed. Our nation was so blessed because men worked hard. It's a spiritual, it's a biblical principle. It works in every scenario, saved, unsaved. This is not just a church thing. This is just a principle, and God blesses and honors hard work. But the problem with when you're blessed, you start taking stuff for granted. And I think that's what's happened, is that the result of the blessing has caused people just to chill out and like think that the hard work's not necessary anymore, or maybe lost the value of hard work and what it does for you. And I really hope that God uses our life somehow. Like people can see like, oh, these people, I love to work. I look forward to work.
Right.
I enjoy it. I enjoy accomplishing something. I love looking back at a job well done. And there's value in that. It's not always just a monetary value. There's personal reward.
Some satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that
I did something.
Yeah.
I did that. I had a part in that. I played a role in that. Whether that's the success of someone else's business, someone else's company, or your own. When you play a role in doing something successful, there's personal benefit for that, you know?
I think we lost. That's a great point, because I think we lost the personal benefit of those things. Just feeling good, getting accomplished. Now it's like, I can accomplish something, but I want to be, I want somebody to see it on the, on the social media, or
Sure.
I want somebody to pat me on the back. There used to be a satisfaction of just saying, look at that. I did that. Great. I feel good just to myself, and having that be enough. Now it's like, that's not enough anymore. It has to be more. It has to be likes, or it has to be,
Right.
some sort of pat on the back, which kind of got away from that, a little bit. And it's there is some satisfaction in just doing a good job.
Sure.
and feeling good about it yourself. I think that's the key, is just to try to bring that back. So you were a youth pastor forever. I mean, that was your claim to fame, I think, for a long time.
Yeah,
I think
I was a youth pastor before there were youth pastors.
Yeah,
There was no such thing as that.
Right. You kind of created, especially in our era of youth, that you kind of carved out a whole thing there. It wasn't like now, where there's youth events everywhere and there's conferences and everything. You kind of carved that out. How did you develop that?
Passion, bro. I don't know what happened. I was kind of weird, honestly, because I was married, and
is that what you wanted to do?
Not necessarily. I didn't even have that in my mind. Carrie and I got married and lived in this little apartment, and we didn't really have youth ministry for our church. I mean, there was a little something going on. We were having little Bible studies. I was a part of it because I was a young person. You know what I mean? And I would help out, like, I was driving, so I would pick kids up and different things. And so I was really more just kind of a part of it. Carrie and I weren't married, but we would go, we would support and that kind of stuff. But after we got, or right before we got married and right after, I just felt like, man, I'm supposed to do this. I remember going into the office. This is kind of crazy, but I went into the office with our, youth leader at the time, and they're nice people, just kind of doing like just the normal, ordinary youth stuff, And there was a little leadership team of like young adults that were kind of watching after the young people. It was a little more of a babysitting service, really, And I went into the office with my dad's there, and these people are there, and I the first time I ever said it, I just looked at all of them. I said, I'm supposed to be the youth leader here. And they just kind of looked at me like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously? I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm supposed to do this. This is supposed to be. And so my dad just kind of like, maybe even a little embarrassed. I don't know. I've never really even asked him about it. Like, what did you think? Because I basically put him on the spot. And so, of course, he didn't just turn it over to me. You know what I mean? He just said, well, if that's something that you want to do, you got to serve. You got to win. You got to win those kids. You got to just. And so that's what I did. I just began to serve, and it was weird because I was so passionate about young people. My wife was not all on board with me with this, but I literally wanted to be around young people. It was weird. All my high school friends have moved on, and I'm sitting there. I'm talking to 13-year-olds. It's weird for a 20-year-old to be doing this, But I wanted them to go for God. I had a passion to see them turn their schools upside down. Like just one thing kind of happened after another, and before long, I was leading the youth. And I don't think there was any special announcement made or nothing. It just happened. And so we were having kids over to our house in our little tiny little humble living room. But we were having kids over, man, and it just, I would go, back then there was no seatbelt law. I had a 1985 Toyota pickup truck with a camper shell on it. And hey, I call these kids up every Friday. I'm coming to get you. You ready? I'm picking you up. You're coming to Bible study tonight. And it was a beige one. That's right. And my record is I had 22 people in that truck, dude. I'm talking, insane. Like, but all of a sudden, I'm talking, kids were getting saved, and we were starting to see, like, we would have Bible studies in the house, and we would have 35, 40 kids, you know, and they weren't kids of parents in our church. They were just kids from the school, from, you know, and before long, they're inviting me to their clubs, they're inviting me to their games, and like literally that became my life. I was just going around, Carrie and I both, we were picking kids up, having Bible study, and just we started to see some really cool things happen, you know, honestly. And it was right about that time, our church, we needed office space, and a building opened up on our street, and we ended up leasing the building. And we only needed half of it. Like we built the offices out, and we put some Sunday school rooms in one half. And so there was this big wall that separated the back half of the building. We didn't have the money to fix it up, and you know, we didn't have any use for it really. And so I remember one day I was walking back there with my dad in this big warehouse building. My dad says, "What do you see?" You know, he says, "What do you see?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I see a youth center," you know. And I started just kind of dreaming. And so we ended up as a church started building this thing out, and you know, at first it was, you know, it was humble. Like I'm not gonna say it was like cutting edge. It wasn't crazy. It was just, but we started off with just some beanbag chairs. So we got a bunch of, I remember going, that was a big purchase for us. We got some Sherwin Vegas speakers, and we got some beanbag chairs. And I would go, and every Friday night pick up all these kids. We'd bring them there, and we'd have Bible studies, and actually, you know, we started having all these kids come and developing relationships, but I started to just kind of wing it. And this is kind of what happened as far as what exploded, how it happened. I was winging it. Like I was working 3 jobs, man. I was just trying to, and so come Friday, I didn't have anything necessarily prepared, you know, so, you know, I'd bring my fruit snacks because I love fruit snacks. And if they answered things right, I'd throw out fruit snacks, and we made it as fun as possible. But there's one particular Friday I was like, man, we're not doing nothing. It's just, this is kind of becoming lame. It's the same thing every week. And so I asked the kids, what do you guys see? What do you see? And all of a sudden, like something just snapped in the building. And all of a sudden these kids began to dream. And so there we are, we're sitting in all these beanbag chairs. And one of the kids says, we need a van. You know, because we have all these kids like sardines in my truck every week. We need a van, and they're all like, yeah, we need a van. And I'm like, oh yeah. Somebody says, nah, we need a bus. We need a bus, man, because we're gonna have more people. We need a bus. I'm like, well, a van and a bus. All right, that's cool, you know. And someone says, oh, we want instruments. We want to play. We want our own worship. We want instruments. That's cool. And someone said, we want to go on a missions trip. And so I mean, this is like. I mean, I just got married. This is like a year in. And so I'm 21 years old. I got 40 teenagers sitting there, and they're dreaming big, you know. And so this was a Friday. Saturday morning, I went to prayer. And I'm praying. You know, I'm thinking about all this stuff. And you know, this girl said that, you know, she wants to go on a missions trip. And I'm thinking, man, missions trip? I could never do that. Like, take these kids. I've been on a mission trip, but I can't imagine leading a team. No way my dad would let me do it anyways. You know, I'm barely 21. I can't even rent a car, you know, and all of a sudden the scripture hit me that Jesus, when he sent out his disciples, he sent them out like lambs among wolves. And it was like God saying, yeah, they're not prepared. They'll probably get eaten alive, but I'm going to use them. And all of a sudden, I got stirred up. We could do this. That very day, that prayer meeting, there was a guy in our church. He's cleaning out his house. He said, "Hey man, I got a bunch of musical equipment. I'm gonna just get rid of. You guys want it?" And it was a bass amp, a guitar amp. And remember, that night, these kids said all these things they wanted. We stood around these beanbag chairs, grabbed hands, and we prayed for every one of those things. We said, "Lord, give us those instruments. Lord, give us a van. Give us a bus. We want to go on a missions trip." So they all prayed. They were like pumped. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And so there on Saturday, I'm doubting. And God's like, no, I'm gonna send them out like lambs among wolves. They're gonna get eaten alive, but I'm gonna use them. And so all of a sudden, now this guy comes up and says, I got instruments, I got amps. And all of a sudden I'm realizing, no, we just prayed for that last night. And God's already answering it. And so then I called everybody and I started telling them, guys, I already got a bass amp, I got a bass guitar, I'm all ready. It already happened. I said, start going through the recycler and start calling everybody with a 15-passenger van and ask them for it. Just ask them for the van, and let's see what happens. They all start doing it. We call this guy, we'll give you a tax write-off for your 15-passenger van. He goes, deal. So in 2 days, we've got instruments, we got the van. My dad is preaching up in Northern California. He calls me. He has no idea any of this stuff's happening. He calls me, he goes, hey, they just offered me, they got an airport shuttle bus that they have no use for. And they offered, do you think you guys want it? I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And this is all happening in
a couple of days.
Yeah, just a couple of days. And so then I'm like, we got to go on a missions trip. And so that summer, we ended up going to Nicaragua and Honduras, our first trip. We took 22 teenagers. Me, my wife, my pregnant wife, took 22 teenagers to Nicaragua and Honduras on a missions trip, which began a series of trips where we took young people for, I think it was like 10 years straight. We went all over Europe. We went to Central America. We went to Eastern Europe. We went to the Philippines.
Just in a couple of weeks, you're going to Ghana.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. We're still doing it, man.
Still doing it. How many years later?
Oh man,
27.
At least, yeah, 27. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. And that really is what began Elevate Ministries, because Elevate was kind of our logo. That's how we developed it. But I mean, since that time, it's been one thing after another. You know, I could tell stories where this one kid came up to me. He's like, "Hey man, I want to build a skate park, a skate ramp." You know, he goes, "I want to build a skate ramp." And I'm like, "Here, you know, you want to? Yeah, I want a skate ramp." I said, "Well." You know, I was thinking my dad's never going to allow that. It's an insurance hazard. There's no way that's going to happen. Because my dad's real.
The old businessman.
He's up on all that stuff. I'm like, that's not going to happen. But I told him, just to kind of give him, give him some time. I said, bring me some plans, and then we'll work on it. That day, he comes back with like drawings of skateboard ramps, how to build them, the wood to buy, all that stuff. So then I had to go to my dad and I'm like, hey, you know, this guy, he really feels like he wants to do this skate ramp, you know, and I think it'd be cool, you know, skateboarding's starting to be kind of big, makes a great outreach tool. My dad's like, let's do it. And so we went and bought the wood and we put it in the youth center. So on Friday night, the kids come and it's just a stack of wood, you know, and I was like, hey guys, this is our skate park. And I said, we're going to pray over it tonight. So similar to what we did, you know, years before with all this other stuff. And so
are you now a believer in the sense of, okay, God's giving us all this stuff.
Oh, dude,
this skate park's going to happen.
Listen, that bus became like that became an evangelistic tool. Like we had that bus was, I don't know if you remember, but I mean it was outfitted. We had flame. We were called Youth of Flame at the time. We actually had a flamethrower shooting out flames out our tailpipe. A guy in our church did that for us. So we would drive by people and just launch flames out of the back. It had a sound system in it. We could literally pull up anywhere and do an outreach like live right there. It was the envy of every church for sure. 100%. It was amazing. So yeah, listen, it wasn't just me believing. It was the kids. That was what was crazy, is the kids were believing it. Like we can do anything.
Right.
We've gone on mission trips now. Like there's nothing we can't do. And so there we are. And now we've grown. You know, now there's probably 65 there. And so we got this stack of wood and I'm like, let's pray over this wood. Let's pray over this wood. And so we got around that. Everybody's laying hands on this pile of wood. So you just kind of picture that. It's crazy, you know. We're praying. We're like, oh God, skate park is going to be amazing, you know. And so we left that night. And we had now transitioned. We were doing services on Wednesdays. And it was like our own church service. We had a worship team at the time, all that. So we prayed over this wood. Now, at the time, one of my jobs, because I'm still a pastor on a pastor's salary, not making much. But I got offered a job to teach Bible at a Christian high school. So that's what I was doing. And so I'm on my way to school. It's 7 a.m. I'm on my way to teach Bible at Pacific Christian. And all of a sudden my phone rings. And so I answer the phone. This guy named Mario Martinez. And he said, you could tell he's like a gruff dude. And he's really kind of angry. He sounds angry. It's early in the morning. I'm like, yeah, this is Mario Martinez. And I said, okay. And he's like, yeah, I heard you're building a skate park, a skate ramp. I said, yeah, we're building a skate ramp because it's people like you ruining skateboarding. I was like, what the heck? How'd this guy even find out? I don't even know how this guy even got my number. You know what I mean? And he goes, I want you to come to my office. And so I went to class. I taught Bible. And he was a part of an organization called Lethal Skateboarding. It was a skateboarding company at the time. So I show up at his office, and he throws down his photo album. And his photo album is just, I'm just kind of going through the pages. Like, this is pre-taking pictures with your phone, all right? This is like an actual pictures. I'm going through this photo album of all these crazy vans, skate park ramps, like from all of these festivals. Like, this guy is he is the skate park builder. That's all he does. And he's so passionate about it. He's like, you guys trying to make these skate ramps, kids can't ride them, and you're destroying skateboarding. You're messing it all up. And I was like, well, yeah, but I can't. We can't do this. He's like, you get the wood, I'll build it for you.
Wow.
And we already had the wood. You gotta remember, we already had the wood. And so I was like, are you sure about that? I got wood, and I'll get whatever you need. And so what was crazy is he brought a whole crew. And on Super Bowl Sunday, while our whole church was in the building, where the youth center was, we were all watching the Super Bowl. These guys went out there and they built us a professional skate ramp, like a legit, unbelievably really cool skate ramp. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
What favor?
Man.
What is the formula for that?
Oh, I think it comes from God.
Yeah, it comes from God, but you it seems like, do you believe? Are you praying? What is the formula for that? Obviously, yeah, from God, but it seems like it just lined up. Is it being faithful to Him? Is it? I think a lot of people want to ask that question, because I think, how do I get that? What do I have to do to get some favor, or what do I have to do to see these dreams come to pass?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people see that. I mean, we love to talk about the highlights, and these are all fun stories.
Sure,
right? But there was a lot of work going on
that's
in
what I'm
between
saying.
all that. Oh yeah, I mean, this wasn't like all of a sudden we're just getting all this stuff dropped on us. Someone had to believe in this kid that said, I want to build a skate ramp. Someone had to say, okay, go get the drawings,
right?
And he did that. And so it was just small steps. Yeah, we see the end result, and we're like, whoa, man, God intervened, and God helped us, because we probably would have screwed it up trying to build that ramp ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't have done it like that.
Right.
But we just had faith, and God added to that. Like, He met us there, and all of a sudden, like, impossible stuff started happening. Like, that's impossible. Like, how, I don't even know. I still to this day, I have no idea. Mario, maybe you could tell me. You'll probably hear this sometime. How did you get my number? It's unbelievable. And what's crazy is that became a partnership with that skate company. They donated so many skateboards for kids and helped us sponsor events. During that time, Tony Hawk Pro Skater was like it was the thing. It was the game. And everybody's playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And Mario helped us line up Kareem Campbell, who was one of the skaters on the original game, to come to be at our first event. And so we had a skate, dude. It was insane. Like, literally a line of people. I don't know if you could even imagine how many people showed up that day. And we still have fruit in our church right now from that event that was probably close to 20 years ago, maybe more.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. So we fast forward to through all the youth years. How many years did you serve as the youth leader?
It was hard for me to leave, man. Like, a long time. I left because my kids were almost teenagers.
Did you stay too long in that role?
No,
you felt good about it? 20 years?
Yeah, I felt good. Because I stayed attached. I stayed apart. I helped. I was an advisor. I still I love being around young people still to this day. But it's crazy how God works, because there were certain things that I've done a lot of things for God in my life. Like, I led worship for years. We did really, really cool stuff. Traveled around doing that, and I swore I would do that for the rest of my life. I swore it. I would never do anything other than that. But just one day, I just knew, hey, it's time. Like God just took away that need or that passion for it. And not that I don't love worship, but it just took away. Same thing with the youth. Like,
just took the place. Something else took the place of that.
Yeah, I didn't lose heart for it. I love it. I still love it to this day. But I felt like, okay, I need to move. I need to move on. God's got something different, you know.
Yeah, I think. How difficult was it? The transition, was there a game plan? Because and I mean the transition from your dad being, you know, the lead pastor, and then kind of saying, I'm going to take a senior role and you're going to be the lead pastor now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it was some kind of divine plan. But
yeah, I mean,
it was something that I think it's something that just kind of it happened naturally over time, and I think I always knew that eventually I think my dad would want that, and so part of me was like, I don't want to do that, you know, like I don't feel comfortable. You know, a lot of the people that
really you felt that way, like it wasn't.
Well, I mean, you know, I was kind of a crazy youth pastor, and so yeah, that ruffled feathers in the adult section of our church.
Because now you're bringing the youth inside the main sanctuary.
Oh
now.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that was. Yeah, that was
Did you feel like you weren't going? Would you feel like you weren't going to be accepted by like the older crowd?
I don't think back then I wouldn't have been.
No, you know? But let's say, how long has it been since you transitioned to lead? 3-4 years?
Yeah, probably, maybe a little bit longer. I mean, I think it was just kind of like slow, and where you know, I've always viewed working at the church. I've always served at the pleasure of our pastor, who happened to be my dad, you know, and I loved doing that. I love that. I wanted to set him up. I wanted him to look good. I wanted our church to be well represented. I really cared about all that stuff. So the hardest part for me was realizing that that's not my role anymore. And I mean, my dad and I had several conversations about this. You know, I'm like, it's really hard for me to make that switch because I've served at your pleasure for years. I've always served. Yes, it's for God, but I've always honored you in that process. And I want you to look good.
Yeah.
I want to help you. You know, and so it's hard to take leadership and now try to you know, talk to my dad about the vision of the church or what we're going to do or who's going to preach this week or all those kind of just like normal decisions that I always deferred to him, and now he's looking to me, and that's weird. It's super weird. I remember talking to my dad about it one time, and he's like, well, you know, I can go to a different church and I can take my gifts and, you know, my talents,
Your dad's telling you this?
my tithe, and I can just go to another church if that would be easier for you. And I was like, whoa, no, that's not what I want. And that kind of opened my eyes, you know. And but here's the thing: what's so amazing is that it's always been a team, and it still is, and we work closely together. And he's such a huge part of our church, you know, such a massive role. He's just kind of taken it behind the scenes more, and I think he enjoys that. I think probably there's some challenges for him in that too, you know, just like there was for me. But it's kind of exciting to see what God's doing, honestly.
What is the philosophy, or what is the game plan? What is the vision? It's kind of, those are all kind of buzzwords, but what is the vision for Elevate Ministries? I mean, now, you know, you transition from your dad to you. What is that vision? Is it the same with maybe just some modifications here?
Yeah. The vision doesn't change. I think the vision was given to us by God, you know, and it's not just for our church. I think it really kind of resounds, you know, to any disciple or follower of Christ. You know, we're changing the world one person at a time. Jesus said, "Go in the world and make disciples." So we take that seriously. The last words of Jesus are going to be the forefront of our mind. That's how we view it, and so that hasn't changed. What probably has changed is I really felt like God told me, and this is the terminology that I got for it. He said, raise the ceiling. Raise the ceiling. Raise the ceiling in every area. So whether it be leadership or opportunities or literally in every area of the church, you know, because there's certain, if you're up against the ceiling, you've reached capacity. And I really felt like what God was saying is like, okay, let's open it up. Let's create more opportunity for more people, for more involvement, to allow people to come in. That's kind of, I think, in what I'm trying to do. And it's not easy. Our church is it's not a young church. It's been around for a while, but we're doing that. I think we're doing that in a lot of different ways, and I'm excited about what that's going to look like 5 years from now, even.
Right. I think that, I started going there. I've been there for a year. I've been somewhat around the people there, know a lot of people there, have family that go there. I think I make the joke, like I tell Melissa, like if we stop coming to this church, it ain't going to be anything that the church or the pastors did. It'll be because did something stupid. Either blew a relationship or, and I said, because it's very unique in the form of, there's a great spirit there. I was telling somebody the other day, a good friend of both of ours, David Hernandez, I seen him and he's like, man, how's Elevate? And I said, man, I told him exactly what I said. And I said, there's just a great effort, a team effort. People really want to help you. People really care. People have great attitudes when they come to church. I'm not used to that. You know what I mean? He said like attitudes, or you got to beg people to help you. And he's like, so people there are really saved. I said, yeah. I started laughing, but how do you develop that culture? I know it's over time for sure, but how do you develop that culture of, one of the values in the church is together. Yeah. And it's not just something that's on the webpage. It's something that's really like, if you show up, like, we're all in this together. What do you need? I was kind of like blown away, like when you used me for the conference, right? And how many people were like, what do you need? We're going to do this. We're going to get you're like, we're going to get some desk up there. We're going to make the podcast look like the podcast up on stage.
Right.
The cameras, we're not going to have them, but we're going to get you some other cameras. And they're like 10 times better cameras, like everything was all these working parts where I was kind of like, even Melissa, like, we're like embarrassed. Like, I'm not used to this, in a good way. Right. Like in a good way of like, I'm embarrassed because I have all these people like, you need me to carry that for you? What do you need, Dave? And I'm like, wait, this is unreal. Yeah. But how do you develop that culture?
I think that's something that takes time. You said, I know it takes time, but I don't think there's any way to replace that. But I think it really starts with our church has always tried to put the best foot forward and do things with excellence. And that takes work, that takes effort, and that takes thought and creativity and strategizing. And so when you come in, we're not asking you to come and do something that we haven't thought about first, that we haven't been creative about too. And so, we want to help you, but we also have a certain standard that we want to maintain. And so those things are talked about, they're dreamt about, and it's not always perfect. It doesn't always work out like that, but that's something that we are very intentional about. And we have a whole, statement about what we expect our services to be like. We want them to be unpredictable. We want them to be welcoming. We want them to be encouraging. We want people to have certain things that they feel, that they sense when they come to our church. And so we're very intentional. We're not perfect at it, all right? It's a group of people, and there's no perfect church. You're never going to find it. But we do work hard at it. We try. We give it honest effort every time, and we've never stopped doing that. And I think excellence is important. And anytime you're doing something for God, I think you should do it with all of your heart. And so that's one of the things that we say. And I think the other thing that you notice is that our church is value driven. We have core values that we live by. And so everything that we do in our church, we do it according to those values. And so the first value is Jesus is front and center. And so when you come to our church, it's not built on a person. We're not advertising a person's name. We're not promoting certain people. That's not what it's about. We're there to lift up Christ. We make him number one. God's word's our blueprint. And so we're talking about God's word. And so everything we do is based around God's word. We're not talking about our own opinions, what we think. That's not what we try to base everything on God's word, and we're together. So just those three are so important. We believe that God placed us in a body, in a group of people, and not just to sit in the same building, but to participate in life together. That we're together. We're not just in a room. We're not just fans cheering for the same team. That's not what we're actually. We're there together, and we're in the game. We're playing together. We're competing together. And so I think that's one of the things you've probably felt and noticed at our church, and we're proud of that. And we're going to get better at it. We're not done. And I really feel like the best is ahead for our church, and we're glad you're here. I think you fit in so well with our culture, And I knew that right away. When I think about you, what I remember is, Carrie and I went through in 2019. Carrie was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we went through. It was a crazy battle. Like, I was hard, and it was very difficult, And at first, when you go through things like that, everybody's there praying for you, talking to you, and everything. But that wanes off pretty quick, and you're there fighting. And at that time, we don't talk much. We didn't see each other, anything. And I remember you sent us money, man. Like you said, hey, go. Carrie was cancer free, and one of the first people that reached out was you, which I thought was strange, And you sent us, go on a date, man, celebrate. And I just thought, wow, that's cool.
I just felt like, man, like, I think those times you like you said, you didn't know, but the times you reached out to me, there was a time when you reached out and you were doing, the conference in, the youth conference in not Arizona, in Palm Springs, right? And you were like, you hit me up and hey, why don't you come out, man, and be a part of this, just show up. And I had my brand and Savior brand, and I'm out there, and I was really bitter at that time. Like I left, I moved far away from where I grew up, and I was tired. I was just like, man, like nothing seemed to work out. I was a little confused on what to do for God, and I was just like, man, I'm just done. I'm just done. And I was probably gone. And this is like pre internet days, really. This is like maybe the early stages. Yeah. And you called me out there, and I went, and I hadn't seen a lot of people in a long time, And when I showed up, like I remember going, and I remember being like, man, that was cool. And I remember being like, I remember telling myself, like, people actually cared. They actually missed seeing me, at certain things, and then I remember you asked me again, and then I was like blown away because one time you asked me to speak, and it was a morning session, and I was like, why? Like what? He's asking me to speak, and I would be a little bit intimidated because you would have great speakers, and then I'd be in the middle, and it's like, and I could sense like a lot of people being like, oh, what is he doing here? Like what, and I would just go for it. I just preach from the heart and just speak. And then you started using me in other aspects. Hey, can you run these events? Can you do this? Can you run this part of it? And kind of just so I think when, like, I was grateful for that, because I don't know where, like, I don't really talk about this, Melissa knows, but I don't know where I would have landed or ended up if there wasn't like some sort of reaching out. And I don't, like you said, you didn't know you were doing that, but at the time that meant like a lot to me. It was just like, yeah, man. And then when you went through that, I was like, with Carrie and cancer and stuff, and I was like, man, that's rough, And I always, even though we were kind of apart, I felt like we had a lot of things that were lined up the same. We got married very young, a couple months apart. We grew up in church. We weren't like the most clean cut kids. We were just kids and liked to have fun, and we messed around, but we were always around church still and seeing each other. So I always felt like there was, a little bit of a connection there. But yeah, man, when you guys went to that, I just felt like, and this guy helped me during a time when I was like struggling and just was my friend. Like, and I think from that time, even just send a little bit of money for, and say, hey, I think, we've gotten closer, and definitely. Yeah. And then I never felt pressure from you to like come to my church. It was never like that. I would talk to you about other churches and be like, I'm going here. I'm going to go visit. What do you think? And you just give me your opinion on stuff, and just, yeah, man, try it out, man, give it a shot. And I'd be like, okay. So I felt like it was like I have a lot of friends, but I needed somebody like almost like a peer. You know what I mean? Like I look at you different now because you're my pastor, but I think it was like a peer thing where it's like we have adult children. We got married young. We've been in the church, and then I just felt like a respect there too. But I felt like there was something there that I can glean from you, you had my best interest at heart. Yeah. And I didn't have that all the time.
Well, I never thought you'd end up at our church, so that wasn't even a thought on mine. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I think it's awesome. I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, it's been great, and you guys have been like a big part of the podcast. I mean, support the podcast. If you saw the ad on the YouTube, that's this guy right here. He's the guy standing there with the microphone. But I think, and that was another thing. I never expected that. I was just happy you listened, and you told me like I love it. And then when you told me you guys wanted to support it, I thought, man, that was great. And it was just, and it was like not even, it wasn't like, hey, we put up an ad and we'll support you if we put the ad on. It was just like, I don't care about that. I just believe in you. And I think that's the key. I think when people go to the church, I think there's something that you have, Carrie, your mom, which is great, and your dad, which they just believe in you. And I think the people that are there, the key leaders that are there, that they're just like, you can feel like, hey man, you can do it. And a guy like me that's not really used to that type of culture, like first you're looking at them like, okay, like Bryn, like I love Bryn now, but Bryn is just like excited, and that's who he is. Oh yeah. So coming from like where I come from, it's like, yeah, what's wrong with this guy? This guy's kind of something's different. Something's weird about this guy. No, it's genuine. It's crazy. It's authentic, and I think it kind of like it bled into me and my wife even more to really, like, yeah, this is good, man. We needed it. It came like at a good time where we needed like that little boost and people that are just same mission, same vision, same attitude, which, everybody there is just, it's from Pete who cleans up the church to Joey and to Bryn to yourself, to your mom and dad. I mean, it's just an attitude of like, hey man, we just want to see you succeed. We just want to see you get to where God wants you to go.
Yep. 100%.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
I think it's a great church, and not just because I go there. And I think you set a great example for a lot of guys. You're a working man's pastor, I think. And I think for me, a hard-working guy that struggled in early years, when I see that, I gravitate to that. Yeah. Because a lot of pastors will just get handed down, and it's like the mantle's passed down. I understand that whole portion, but to really work and put in the work for a working guy, it goes a long way. Yeah. I think probably your grandpa.
100%.
100 years old?
Yep, 100 years old. Can you believe that? 100 years old.
It's insane. Yeah. But I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Welcome aboard, man. Seriously.
I love it there. I mean, we're trying to recruit Cam, you know what I mean, over there, little by little. You don't have to recruit him. I'm his dad. I'll recruit him. We'll bring Cam and his skills over there. Pastor Joey's already trying to, Pastor Joe. Sorry, I call him Joey. Trying to recruit him, but it's a great place. Let me ask you this. There's a lot of churches that are woke nowadays.
I knew we were going here.
We have to.
Okay.
And I'm not saying there's a way our church goes about it, and I think it's in a loving way. It's kind of like in a parent way, where it's like, hey, listen, this is what we believe,
right?
And we love you, but this is what we have to stand for. Yep. And in this day and age, it's very hard for people to take a stand, and it's hard for churches to take a stand. It's hard for leaders to take a stand. You let's be honest. I mean, you're on a payroll there, and a lot of people will let that affect how they preach. Mm-hmm. you know, well, I don't want to lose people, because if we start preaching this way, then we might lose some people. I know you'll never say that, but it's a fact.
Right.
But I think there's something about preaching the truth always benefits the church. And initially you might lose a few people, but when you speak the truth, the core that you have there ends up being like hardcore. You know, they're tough, and it's a solid core. How do you balance?
I mean, it was
all that.
Yeah, all that happened, and you know, we can go back
because it was fast.
It was quick.
It was within a couple years that it went from like, hey, praise the Lord, everybody, come on, and we love you, to like, whoa, we really got to speak the truth here.
Yeah, it was for me eye-opening, because there were people that were mentors to me, that I looked up to, that were going a different route. I mean, guys I listened to and you know, that I got advice from, and you know, all that, and then to see them take what I felt was well, it wasn't a strong stand in as far as biblical. It was hard. It was super hard for me, and it caused me to question myself. Like, man, am I off? Is something wrong here? I mean, I remember thinking, you know, like, you know, is this too radical? You know, am I? And I just began to think about what was being spoken, and then what God's word said, and I saw so many. It didn't line up, and I'm like, wait a second, God's word is our blueprint. That's our value. And so what God says is what we're going with 100% of the time. And yeah, our interpretation could get off sometimes, and we recognize that. So we question ourselves. We talk among, we try our best to make sure, hey, are we doing this right? Are we saying this right? Is this, but what God's word says is pretty clear most times. And so if you'll read it in context, you'll recognize that the battles that were happening in biblical days haven't changed. Same devil, different era. All right, different. Maybe it looks a little different. It's the same fight. And you'll recognize quick. There was a lot of things that happened in the New Testament church that, yeah, it's a different era, different generation, but it's the same battle. It's the same fight, and you recognize the enemy's number one tactic is to lie. He's the father of lies. All right? He's there to deceive, and he's good at it. He's been very successful down through the ages of deceiving mankind, period. And so if he's done it over and over and over again all throughout Scripture, we can't think that he's not about doing that today. And I felt like a lot of the church and a lot of leaders in the church got just deceived. Honestly, that's how I felt, and it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make them awful. That nothing, but I think they fell for it, and it's easy now to say, "Oh, see," because all those lies are getting exposed now. I mean, right. I think everybody's noticing it. You know, you just watch the news tonight, and you'll see lies just getting dropped. I mean, and so stuff that people were fighting so hard for today, they're not talking about because it's been debunked. Right. It's a foregone conclusion. It's over. Right. So it's easy to, and I don't want to do that. It's easy to say, yeah, man, I see. So that's not what this is. What this is just, I think we should all recognize that God's word is true. If He said it, if it's written there for us, it's a blueprint for us. And so if we'll just use His word to as a blueprint for our lives, regardless of what the fight is, what the lie is, it'll get exposed. And so whether it was politics, or whether it was race relations, or whether it was a pandemic, and what do we do, and all those things, I really believe all that stuff is right there in God's word. It's clear, plain as day. And so, yeah, we upset some people by exposing the current culture lie or the narrative. When we exposed it with the truth of God's word, yeah, it ruffled feathers. And there was people that left our church. There was people that were, slamming us on social media and saying all kinds of stuff, and people mad at me and all that. And honestly, I wasn't ever really afraid of what you were discussing, like the paycheck thing, because I felt confident. I really did, man. I felt like, No,
this is what God wants.
This is what God wants.
Yeah.
And honestly, the more I looked for clarity, the more God gave it to me. I felt clear in what I was saying and what I was preaching. God was giving me messages that were bold. It was definitely bold. But I think in times of turmoil, what people need is bold leadership. And people to say, hey, let's go. This is the way. Follow me. Let's go.
I think that's what people want in general.
Yeah.
You know, in the church, in just a clear cut, like, you know, hey, the truth. Just tell us the truth. Yeah. If it hurts, it hurts. If it stings, it stings. But we don't want the fluff. I mean, it's better at the end of the day if you tell me something that I'm not going to like, and then I understand and I change, than to fluff it out and then I'm just wavering in the wind. I
mean, when you're talking about fluff, what helped us was Carrie's cancer battle, because there's no fluff there.
No.
Like it's skin and bones. Like you have to fight. And yeah, there was times in that where I was like, God, why is this happening? I don't understand. Like, what did we do? Like, all we've done is serve you. We've lived clean. Like, I don't get this. But that fight prepared us, because that happened in 2019. 2020 comes around and we've been fighting for a year. So it wasn't anything not new to us. I wasn't afraid to fight at that point.
At that point, you're dealing with your wife battling cancer, extreme, and now it's like, well, everything after that is not really a fight compared to what we went through, right?
Yeah. So I know it was perfect. God allowed us to go through that to prepare us for what was next, so that we would be stronger to help our people, lead people. How
hard was it for you to fight during Carrie's cancer battle? Because men have a tough side, a prideful side, where they can't show emotions. I would assume, I know you're a man's man, I would assume that you did not want to show any emotional part, because you got to be strong for your wife.
Well, I'm an emotional person, though. I mean, I like chick flicks. Like I cry in every movie. Like, that's just.
I just said you're a man's man.
You're allowed one. You're allowed one chick thing, not two. All right. So I make that clear. Like, every man is allowed one chick thing. All right. So mine is, I like chick flicks, man.
What is mine?
Yeah. You like candles or something?
Candles.
You have one.
Manicures, pedicures.
You have one. Every man has one. All right. You just can't have two.
That's a good one. I like that.
So, anyways, yeah, I was emotional during all that, but I tried to lead my family too, with strength. And so, yeah, there was times when I struggled. I mean, I was times I sat there and cried like a baby, and with my dad, you know, and just trying to figure it out. Like, I can't believe this is happening. You know, this changed a lot of change took place because of that. You know, in our lives, the stuff that we'd grown accustomed to, is everything changed, man. Like that. Yeah, that was hard. And so I was emotional, but here's the other thing. I knew this would end in healing. Like that was the word God gave me. This ends in healing. And that was straight from God's word. Like I read it in the story where there was a dead little girl, and basically Jesus said, this is going to end in healing. And I just took that as my own, and I said it, I proclaimed it everywhere I went, told everybody, I was going to end in healing. It's going to end in healing. And how was that going to look? Well, yeah, there was surgery required. There was chemotherapy. It was hard. Like, it was a year of tough stuff. Like, but in the end, I mean, look at my wife today. I mean, full head of hair, you know, a lot of the little things that were plaguing her gone, totally clear, clean, cancer free. And we believe that's going to be that's how the rest of her life is going to be. And we just proclaim that. That's the truth of God's word. That's the thing about God's word, man. Like Isaiah 55:11, God's word never returns void. It always accomplishes that for which it was sent. And I just grabbed a hold of the truths of God's word and just said, that's mine. I'm going to own that. And that's how I fought. We didn't do anything other than that. Like, I couldn't do anything. There was a lot of times I would sit there, and Carrie didn't want to hear me talk. Like, it was a tough, man. So I just sat there. I didn't know what else to do. Like, I'll just be here then. And, but man, you look at it, you know, a year later, and yeah, a lot of things in our life changed as a result of that. There was a lot of things that we took for granted we didn't recognize, and we had to relearn things, all that. But I'm so grateful that God allowed us to go through that. I think it really helped us in the eyes of people, because we served God through the whole thing. We didn't miss church. I preached straight through the whole thing, and Carrie was there, and she'd get up on stage with that bald head, and she'd and just let it go. It was amazing. It really was a really fruitful time for us, I think.
What do you tell people that now, since you went through that, what do you mentioned right now, you live, and you live with a little bit more thankfulness. You live with a little bit more like gratefulness of, hey, we got another day. Like, this is, what's your advice for people out there that, it's just like they're making big things out of little things, and they're not enjoying life. They're not enjoying, like, it's not that bad. I read something today I posted it, and it was just about how the reality of we have our image that we want to live up to from social media. We have everybody else's image that we think we should be living, and then there's reality, and we're so caught up in the image of social media, the image that everybody else looks like they're living, and then trying to live with which we all know is our reality, and we're missing that part of, hey, living in the now, living in reality, and enjoying the struggle, or enjoying the smaller things in life, instead of thinking like everybody's on vacation and everybody's eating steaks.
Hey, those things are fun.
they're great, right?
Yeah, they're good.
But it's not every day.
No, it's not every day. I think life is a gift. Life is a gift. I think we recognize that with the struggle. I think we all recognize that our lives are fragile, but also I think it's the day to day that's the stuff God uses. We like to think, stage or this, that, or the other thing. But when I look over the impact of our life, I don't think about those big conferences we did, and they were fun. Like, those are the best pictures, right? Those are the things that people ask about. But the impact that I look at my life now, and honest, as I look at it, Carrie and I, what the impact we've been able to make. Today on social media, there's a girl in our church. Her name's Jen Gutierrez, and they reposted a little message that she spoke to the youth on Friday night. I remember Johnny, is her husband, Jen, were in our youth group, broken up kids, just messed up, like hurting, and we love them. Carrie and I went out with them on their first date. We ate at Cheesecake Factory. They ended up getting married. Got two beautiful girls.
A great home. Yeah,
bro.
The best cooks. Yeah. You get invited to their house. It's just hospitality and just love in their house. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah. So for me, all the stuff, all the highlight stuff that people, when they think of Adam Friedrich and they think about Elevate Conference, that's kind of like my identity kind of. But when I think about the impact of my life, it's in stories like that we played a small role. We just. And so that's the kind of stuff that I live for now. I live for seeing. I love seeing my kids living for God and working out their destiny. And who knows what God has in store for them. I see all the people that we've invested in over the years, and I go, man, God, like, look at this. They're married. They got kids. They're leading lives, buying houses. Like, whoa, this is amazing. And so but that happened not at a conference. That happened over dinner.
Day to day.
That happened, picking them up in my little Toyota pickup truck with 22 other kids. That's when that happened. And it's been a joy. That's been a joy.
The small things.
Yeah, man.
The small things that matter the most.
Absolutely. It's a journey, man.
It is a journey.
The journey is the destination, right?
Yes. Who would have ever thought I'd be at Elevate?
I know.
I'm there now. It's great. Lastly, I want to ask you this. Like I said earlier, I look at you as a man's man, a guy that made his bones. I'm not tooting your horn or anything like that, but I know you don't toot it, so I'll toot it a little bit. But I look at that stuff, and I look what you've made and how you made your life and what you've done. And I know it's a lot foundation of Christ, of course. But what's your advice to the young men of this generation? I ask this to a lot of guys that come in here, and because a lot of men are lost. They don't have no direction. They don't have, maybe it's because they don't have fathers, maybe because they're not driven, whatever it may be. But what is your advice to those guys out there?
Well, I mean, if you're talking, I think the key to anything in your success in life first of all, is a relationship with God. And you've got to develop that for yourself. No one's going to do that for you. All right. You can go to church all you want, but you have to develop your relationship with God. So for me, that's the foundation. Okay. I can't, not say that, but I would say consistency, discipline, these words that maybe aren't really that popular anymore, but it's taking one step every day. It's amazing how far you get. It's being disciplined in every part of your life, whether it be physically, whether it be in the things that you do and watch and how you talk, and disciplining yourself to a certain standard and maintaining that over a long period of time. I feel like that is what's helped me so much. And it works that way in every area of your life. You could talk about finances. If you're consistent in your finances and setting a little bit aside, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just setting a little bit aside, you'll be amazed how far you can get. I hear so many people, I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to buy a house. I got so tired of hearing that. Oh, I can't buy a house here in Southern California. What a lie. What an absolute lie. It's a lie. You're saying God can't do that? So you got to move to, you got to move to Iowa to be able to, come on. No, you're saying you're limiting God. No, God can do anything, but you have to be involved in the equation. And so I think the consistency every day, it plays a big role in whether or not you're going to be successful in your marriage, in your finances, in your career, whatever it may be, in your calling, whatever it may be. It's the consistency, because it's hard. It's easy to quit. It's easy just to I didn't work. But one of the things I just set my mind, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get everything I got every single day, and when it's all said and done, let the chips fall where they may. And so far, it's been awesome. I don't have any regrets. It's been fantastic.
I love that, man. I always say that nobody likes an inconsistent anything.
Right.
Right? He's inconsistent at the gym, inconsistent with the Lord, inconsistency with your wife, with your kids. It's the consistency that matters the most, like showing up every day.
Yep.
That's the hardest part, but it's also the most rewarding part. You know what comes next, right?
This is the part that's been scaring me the most.
You know, it's time, right? It's about that time for, what do we call this?
Furious 5.
This is Dave 1. This is the Street Gospel Furious 5. Pastor Adam Friedrich from Elevate Ministries. I got to pull it up on my phone. Let's see what we got here. First question. If you were a professional athlete, what sport and what position would you play?
I mean, I gotta say, and it's not because I love watching football. Football, favorite sport to watch. I love the strategy of baseball. But what grabbed me as a young person was number 23, the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan. Watching him play, I think just like everybody wanted to be like Mike, including this white boy from Buena Park, California. So yeah, I would want to be a shooting guard, and I worked hard at it. I never played basketball in high school, but I was on the baseball team, and we challenged our varsity basketball team to a game, and it was like something out of a movie. On a Friday night, somebody got the key to the gym. Everybody and all their friends showed up. People wore brown bags all in the stands, and wouldn't you know it, our baseball team, led by Alfredo Garcia, he was like a 6'5" pitcher. No one knew he knew how to play basketball, but he slam dunked like 5 times in that game, and I hit it several threes, and yeah, we won that game.
I remember playing with you. Yeah, good. But you got banged on by somebody famous when you were younger.
Yeah, I did.
Why don't you share that guy?
Okay, well, we had pick up basketball at Artesia Park, and I was there with a bunch of guys from my high school, and we were running the court for a little while. And all of a sudden, these guys showed up, and I had no idea who it was. Okay, now we all knew it. UCLA was really good at the time, and their leader on the team was a guy named Ed O'Bannon. Well, who showed up at the park that day was his little brother, Charles O'Bannon. And I had no idea, but I ended up having to stick this guy. And there was no match, man. All I knew, I didn't even know what happened. All I knew is that his shorts were in my face as he's hanging from the rim. That's the truth.
I got a Charles O'Bannon jersey in my closet right now, man. Number 13.
Yep.
1995, UCLA. I mean, I just gave it away. I'm a big UCLA fan, so I had to throw that in there. Question number 3 on the Street Gospel Podcast, Furious 5. One hobby you do that nobody knows, or pastime, that you kind of keep under wraps.
Oh, man. People know about it though. I mean, I've restored a few cars. Like I really got into Volkswagens for a while. So
I remember
I had a Carmen Ghia. It was my first one. I got it for $500 and fixed it up. Did the upholstery. Ended up. I was at a gas station. I remember I paid $500. I was a young kid. I was like 22 years old. Somebody at the gas station offered me $5,000 for it. I was dumb. I didn't know what it was worth, and so I said, "Right now." And so I was right on the corner from my house. I went to my house, got the pink slip, signed it over. He went to the bank, gave me $5,000. I was like, man, this is amazing. So then I bought a 1965 Volkswagen Fastback, junk, like terrible, like awful. And then I restored that. And you can't buy parts of that. So I had to go to junkyards. And it took me about 2 years. But I revived that thing. I ended up selling it to, remember Blue's Clues?
Yes.
The guy on Blue's Clues, that guy bought he bought it. Matter of fact, he just sold his house and my car is in the ad still. The little blue car. I asked him, I say, so did you buy the car? Because it was bright blue, just like blue in the show. Did you buy the Fastback because it's blue like Blue's Clues? He goes, no. He goes, I bought it to pick up chicks. That's kind of weird when your kids watch the show. And then I did a Peach Bug, a 1964 Peach Bug, and right now I have a 85 Jeep.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I do that.
Cam's big Jeep lover over there.
There you go.
All right. Not bad.
Okay.
You do all the work yourself?
Well, I mean, what I can do.
Yeah.
Certain things I can't do. Yeah. But I design it myself. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Okay. Did you know that?
I remember the Bug.
Okay.
I didn't know the other cars. So I thought the Bug was like a one-off, midlife crisis kind of thing.
No, that car's in Japan right there. Yeah,
Nice.
I made some money on that car.
Question number 4.
Okay.
You travel all over the world. Do you speak any other languages other than English?
Do not.
What?
I know.
If you could, which one would it be?
It would have to be Spanish because it's so useful here in Southern California. And I regret it because I did 3 years of Spanish. I got straight A's in Spanish, man. But I don't remember any of it.
We're going to take an offering. We're going to get you the Rosetta Stone.
Wait. Do you speak Spanish?
No, I don't.
Okay, you can't do nothing to me then.
I can order in Spanish, though.
So can I.
It's not steak. It's carne asada, man.
If anybody should be speaking Spanish, it's you.
Why, man?
You're Hispanic.
You're racist.
I'm
dude.
white.
Anyways, you're the one that travels all over the world. You should be able to speak one of these languages by now. Going on all these mission trips. I mean, you would think.
No, it's never happened. Sorry.
Okay.
Did I disappoint you?
I think you did. I was hoping you were like, yeah, I know a little bit. I mean, I thought you were like the Kobe type. You know, you're just picking up all these languages and able to learn them. All right. Not bad. Last one. If you could put up one prayer for the church and have it answered, the church body overall, what would it be?
Unity. Unity. 100%. Because with unity, you can do anything. Nothing's restrained when there's unity. And that's why the devil fights so hard to create all kinds of division, And he's good at it. And we fall prey to it all the time. Even in our own local churches, with people that we love, we end up getting bent out of shape and frustrated and all that. So yeah, I pray for unity. I pray for that every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't bad.
I wanted to talk about the time I got arrested, but it didn't make it to the podcast next time.
Okay, let me ask you this.
I can't do it.
Wait, hold on.
Too late, man.
It is too late. But this is the thing. People come on the podcast, right? And they think they have to have this. Your wife posted something like this the other day, where people think they have to have this dramatic over the top testimony. In general, people think that, right? They need to have this hardcore story. I was Adam and I was the son of a pastor and I was on meth in Anaheim stealing hubcaps. You know what I mean? What is, I forgot to ask you this. I know I was going with that somewhere earlier, but what is the power of a testimony of a kid like yourself or like myself that not perfect, but I'm saying we constantly were striving to stay on the straight and narrow and serve God, because that's never highlighted, and I want to make sure that there's an importance behind that too. Yeah. There's a blessing. There's things that come with doing the right thing.
I'm so grateful that I don't have the pain of some of the stories that I hear. What I hear is a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and I don't live with a lot of that. I don't live with the scars of relationships like that were messed up. I don't live with side effects of a drug that I took. I don't have to deal with any of that. So yeah, that I think there's value to that too. And when you live for God for a long period of time, there's a lot of fruit. And so I can boast that as a young kid, I lived for God all through high school, and there's fruit that started back then and it's just piling up. Seeds planted all these years, and who knows what's going to happen with all that.
All right. So I think that was important. That was the first time I ever asked the question after the Furious 5. Man. It's always a first, man. Appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Anything you want to shout out?
I'm going to shout out Elevate Ministries, all the wonderful people there, including yourself, Dave, that make up this amazing church. And if you're listening on the podcast, you're more than welcome to come and join our community.
Yes.
We'll welcome you in. You'll be right at home no matter who you are.
Right. There's all kinds of different people there.
Yeah, it's great.
We got people from the mafia, ex-mafia members. Man. We have like surfers, drug addicts, clean-cut people, broken people, healed people. It's a great mix of people with one vision.
Amen.
Right on. Thanks for coming out.
For sure.
Love you, man.
Love you too.